You ever wake up one morning and wonder why your grass looks like it's been in a rainforest? I did. It was a Tuesday, I think. I stepped outside, coffee in hand, ready to enjoy the quiet before work. And there it was, my lawn, soaked. Not just a little damp, but squishy. Like someone had turned my yard into a water park overnight. At first, I thought maybe I'd left the sprinklers on, but nope. I hadn't used them in weeks. Then I saw it. My hose. It was stretched across the driveway, snaking its way into Karen's yard. Karen. The self-appointed queen of the neighborhood. She wasn't the HOA president, but you wouldn't know that from the way she walked around with her clipboard, inspecting everyone's trash cans and flower beds like she was conducting a military inspection. I stood there, staring at the hose, trying to process what I was seeing. Was she using my water? Without asking? I mean, I knew Karen was entitled, but this was next level. I walked over, picked up the hose, and sure enough, it was still dripping. Water flying everywhere like it was free, like it wasn't coming out of my wallet. I turned off the spigot, coiled the hose, and went back inside. Maybe it was a mistake, I thought. Maybe she didn't realize it was mine. Yeah, right. The next morning, same thing. Grass soaked, hose stretched across the driveway. This time, I didn't even bother turning it off. I just stood there, staring at Karen's house, wondering how someone could be so bold. I mean, who does that? Who just helps themselves to someone else's water like it's no big deal? I decided to let it slide. Again. I didn't want to start drama, but deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Karen wasn't the type to let things go, and neither was I. By the third day, I was done playing nice. I woke up early, before the sun even came up, and planted myself by the window with my coffee. I was going to catch her in the act, and sure enough, around 6:30 a.m., there she was. Karen, in her perfectly pressed yoga pants and oversized sunglasses, marching across my driveway like she owned the place. She grabbed the hose, turned on the spigot, and started watering her lawn like it was the most normal thing in the world. I threw open the window. "Karen, what are you doing?" She froze, hose in hand, and turned to look at me like I was the one being unreasonable. "Oh, hi. I was just borrowing your hose. My sprinkler system's broken and I didn't want my flowers to die." "Borrowing?" I said, my voice rising. "You didn't ask. You've been using my water for days." She waved her hand like she was swatting away a fly. "Oh, don't be so dramatic. It's just water. It's not like I'm stealing your car." I couldn't believe her. "It's not about the water, Karen. It's about respect. You can't just help yourself to someone else's property." She rolled her eyes. "Fine, I'll ask next time. Happy?" I wasn't happy, not even close. But I didn't want to escalate things, so I just said, "Yeah, ask next time." I thought that would be the end of it, but of course, it wasn't. The next morning, I woke up to find my hose missing, completely gone. I checked the side of the house, the garage, even the backyard. Nothing. Then I looked over at Karen's yard. There it was, coiled neatly next to her porch. I stormed over and knocked on her door. She answered with a smile, like she'd been expecting me. "Oh, hi. I figured since you were so upset about me borrowing your hose, I'd just keep it for a while. You know, to avoid any more drama." I was speechless. She'd stolen my hose, stolen it, and she was acting like she was doing me a favor. I called the HOA, but they were useless. "It's a civil matter," they said. "We don't get involved in neighbor disputes." Civil matter? This was theft. But without proof, there wasn't much I could do. So I decided to take matters into my own hands. I went to the hardware store and bought a new hose, along with a heavy-duty lock for the spigot. Let's see her try to steal it now. For a few days, everything was quiet. No stolen hose, no soggy lawn. I thought maybe Karen had finally gotten the message. I was wrong. One morning, I woke up to find the lock cut. Not broken, cut, like someone had used bolt cutters. And the hose was gone again. I was furious. I marched over to Karen's house ready to give her a piece of my mind. But when I got there, I saw something that stopped me in my tracks. Karen wasn't just using my hose to water her lawn. She was filling up a kiddie pool, a bright pink inflatable kiddie pool. And she wasn't alone. There were at least 5 other neighbors there, lounging in lawn chairs, sipping drinks, and laughing like they were at some kind of block party. I stood there, staring at them, trying to process what I was seeing. They were using my water, my stolen water, to throw a pool party. One of the neighbors noticed me and waved. "Hey, come join us." Karen said it was fine. Karen looked up and smiled. "Oh, hi, we're just having a little neighborhood get-together. You don't mind, do you?" I didn't say anything. I just turned around and walked back to my house. But as I walked, an idea started forming in my mind. If Karen wanted to play dirty, I could play dirty too. I spent the rest of the day plotting. Karen had crossed a line, and I wasn't about to let her get away with it. But I needed to be smart about it. I couldn't just confront her again. She'd just laugh it off or twist it into some kind of victim narrative. No, I needed something clever. Something that would hit her where it hurt. That's when it hit me. If Karen loved using my hose so much, I'd give her something to really remember. I waited until late that night, when the neighborhood was quiet and the streetlights cast long shadows across the lawns. I grabbed my new hose, a few tools, and a 5-gallon paint bucket I'd been meaning to throw away. Then I got to work. First, I filled the bucket with water from my spigot. Then I added a few special ingredients, things I had lying around the house. A cup of vinegar, a handful of dirt, some old coffee grounds, a squirt of dish soap, and, just for good measure, a few drops of green food coloring. I stirred it all together, creating a concoction that looked like something out of a swamp. Next, I hooked the hose to the bucket. It wasn't easy. I had to rig it with duct tape and a few connectors, but eventually I got it to work. When I turned on the spigot, the hose would pull water from the bucket instead of the main line. I tested it a few times to make sure it worked, then coiled the hose back up and left it in its usual spot. Now, all I had to do was wait. The next morning, I woke up early again and planted myself by the window. Sure enough, around 6:30 a.m., Karen appeared. She marched across my driveway, clipboard in hand, and grabbed the hose. I held my breath as she turned on the spigot. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, suddenly, a jet of murky green water shot out of the hose, spraying everywhere. Karen screamed and dropped the hose, but it was too late. The water hit her square in the chest, soaking her perfectly pressed yoga pants and staining her white tank top a sickly green. I couldn't help it. I burst out laughing. Karen spun around, her face red with anger, and saw me standing in the window. "What the hell is wrong with you?" she shouted. I opened the window and leaned out. "Oh, sorry, Karen. Did I forget to mention? I've been experimenting with eco-friendly lawn care, saving the planet and all that." She glared at me, dripping wet and covered in green slime. "This is assault. I'm calling the police." I shrugged. "Go ahead, but just so you know, I've got security cameras, and they've been recording you stealing my hose for days." That stopped her in her tracks. She opened her mouth to say something, then closed it again. Without another word, she turned and stormed back to her house, leaving the hose lying in the middle of my driveway. I thought that would be the end of it, but Karen wasn't the type to let things go. Later that day, I got a notice from the HOA. Apparently, Karen had filed a formal complaint, accusing me of harassment and destruction of property. The notice said I had to attend a hearing to explain myself. I couldn't believe it. Karen had stolen my hose, thrown a pool party with my water, and now she was trying to get me in trouble. This woman was unbelievable. But I wasn't about to back down. I spent the next few days gathering evidence. I printed out photos from my security cameras, showing Karen stealing the hose and using it without permission. I also printed out my water bills, which showed a huge spike in usage over the past week. When the day of the hearing arrived, I walked into the HOA office feeling confident. Karen was already there, sitting at the table with her arms crossed and a smug look on her face. The hearing started, and Karen went first. She gave a dramatic speech about how I'd attacked her with toxic chemicals and endangered her health. She even brought a doctor's note, claiming she'd developed a rash from the harmful substances in the water. I rolled my eyes. The woman was a master manipulator. When it was my turn, I laid out my evidence. I showed the photos, the water bills, and even a video of Karen filling up her kiddie pool with my hose. The HOA board members looked shocked. "Is this true, Karen?" one of them asked. Karen stammered, trying to come up with an excuse. "Well, I didn't think it was a big deal, it's just water." "It's theft," I said, "and she's been doing it for days." The board members huddled together, whispering for a few minutes. Then they announced their decision. Karen was fined $500 for theft and misuse of community resources. She was also ordered to reimburse me for the water she'd used. I couldn't help but smile as Karen stormed out of the room, her face red with anger. But as satisfying as that was, I knew it wasn't over. Karen wasn't the type to let things go, and neither was I. Karen's defeat at the HOA hearing should have been the end of it. But if there's one thing I've learned about Karen, it's that she doesn't know when to quit. If anything, the fine and public humiliation only made her more determined to get back at me. A few days after the hearing, I noticed something strange. My trash cans, which I'd left at the curb for pickup, were tagged with bright orange violation stickers. According to the HOA, I'd placed them out too early, and they were an eyesore to the neighborhood. I rolled my eyes. This was clearly Karen's doing. She'd probably called the HOA and complained, just to get under my skin. I didn't think much of it at first, but then the violations kept coming. My mailbox was slightly crooked. My lawn was overgrown. It wasn't. My porch light was too bright. It was like Karen had made it her personal mission to nitpick every little thing about my property. I tried to ignore it, but the constant stream of violation notices was starting to wear on me. Every time I checked my mailbox, there was another letter from the HOA threatening fines or even legal action if I didn't comply with community standards. I knew Karen was behind it, but I couldn't prove it. Not yet, anyway. Then, one morning, I woke up to find my car covered in sticky neon green flyers. They were plastered all over the windshield, the doors, even the hood. Each one had a photo of me, taken without my knowledge, with the words "bad neighbor" in bold letters. Underneath, there was a list of violations I'd supposedly committed, along with a call to action. Keep our community safe. Report this person to the HOA. I was furious. This wasn't just petty anymore, it was harassment. I ripped the flyers off my car, my hands shaking with anger. As I did, I noticed something written in tiny print at the bottom of each one. Printed and distributed by Karen's crew. Karen's crew? What the hell was that? I did some digging online and quickly found out. Karen had started a Facebook group called Karen's Crew, where she posted daily updates about her battle against the bad neighbor, me. The group had dozens of members, mostly other busybodies from the neighborhood, who cheered her on and offered tips for making my life miserable. One post stood out. It was from Karen herself, and it read, "Operation Make Their Life Hell is in full swing. Let's keep the pressure on until they learn their lesson." The comments were even worse. People were suggesting everything from keying my car to poisoning my plants. It was like a mob mentality with Karen as the ringleader. I knew I had to do something, but I wasn't sure what. Going to the police wouldn't help. They'd just say it was a civil matter. The HOA was useless, as usual, and confronting Karen directly would only make things worse. That's when I had an idea. If Karen wanted to play dirty, I'd fight fire with fire. I created a fake Facebook account under the name Linda Loves Lawn Care and joined Karen's crew. At first, I just lurked, reading the posts and getting a feel for the group. Then, slowly, I started commenting. "Karen, you're such an inspiration," I wrote on one of her posts. "I wish more people stood up for what's right like you do." She ate it up. "Thank you, Linda. It's not easy, but someone has to hold these bad neighbors accountable." Over the next few days, I worked my way into the group, gaining Karen's trust. I praised her leadership, agreed with her complaints, and even suggested a few creative ways to make my life harder. Then, one night I made my move. I posted a photo of Karen's house, taken from my security camera. It showed her sneaking into my yard late at night, carrying a pair of bolt cutters. The caption read, "Is this what a good neighbor looks like?" The group exploded. "Wait, is that Karen? What's she doing with bolt cutters? I thought she said she never stole the hose." Karen tried to defend herself, but the damage was done. The members of Karen's crew turned on her, accusing her of lying and hypocrisy. Within hours, the group was in chaos, with people arguing and deleting their accounts. By the next morning, Karen's crew was gone. Karen had deleted the entire group, along with her personal Facebook account. I thought that would be the end of it, but Karen wasn't done. A few days later, I woke up to find my front yard covered in toilet paper. The trees were draped in it, the bushes were wrapped in it, and there was even a roll hanging from my porch light. At first, I thought it was just a stupid prank. But then I noticed something else. Scattered across the lawn were dozens of plastic forks, all stuck into the ground like tiny flags. I had no idea what it meant, but I knew one thing for sure. Karen was behind it. The toilet paper and plastic forks were just the beginning. Over the next few days, the pranks escalated. One morning, I woke up to find my car covered in Post-it notes, thousands of them, in every color imaginable. Another day, my lawn was decorated with dozens of garden gnomes, all arranged in a circle like some kind of creepy cult meeting. At first, I tried to laugh it off, but it was hard to stay calm when every day brought some new, bizarre form of harassment. I knew Karen was behind it, but I couldn't prove it. She was careful to stay out of sight, and none of the pranks left any direct evidence. I decided to take matters into my own hands. If Karen wanted to play games, I'd play games too. I started by setting up more security cameras around my property. I installed one on the front porch, one in the backyard, and even one on the roof, giving me a clear view of the entire yard. I also bought a motion-activated floodlight, hoping it would scare off any nighttime intruders. For a few days, nothing happened. I started to think maybe Karen had given up. Then, one night, the floodlight went off. I was sitting in the living room watching TV when I heard the motion sensor beep. I grabbed my phone and pulled up the camera feed. At first, I didn't see anything. Then, slowly, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was Karen. She was wearing all black, like some kind of low-budget spy, and carrying a large bag. I watched as she crept across my lawn, stopping every few steps to look around. When she reached the middle of the yard, she opened the bag and pulled out a handful of something. I zoomed in on the camera feed. It was glitter. Karen started sprinkling the glitter all over my lawn, like some kind of deranged fairy godmother. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Was she seriously trying to ruin my lawn with glitter? I didn't wait to find out. I grabbed a flashlight and ran outside, catching her in the act. "Karen, what the hell are you doing?" She froze, her hand still full of glitter. For a moment, she just stood there, staring at me like a deer in headlights. Then she dropped the bag and took off running. I didn't chase her. Instead, I picked up the bag and took it inside. It was full of glitter, all right. Hundreds of tiny, iridescent pieces that would probably take weeks to clean up. But I had an idea. The next morning, I posted the security footage on every social media platform I could think of. I tagged Karen, the HOA, and even the local news station. The caption read, "Meet Karen, the glitter bandit. She's been terrorizing our neighborhood for weeks. Share this video and help hold her accountable." The video went viral. Within hours, it had thousands of views, shares, and comments. People were outraged. "Who does this? This is next-level crazy. Someone call the cops." Karen tried to defend herself, but it was no use. The evidence was clear, and the internet had already made up its mind. The HOA held an emergency meeting and voted to expel Karen from the board. The local news even did a segment on the story, calling it the Great Glitter War. I thought that would be the end of it, but Karen wasn't done. A few days later, I got a letter in the mail. It was from Karen's lawyer, threatening to sue me for defamation and invasion of privacy. The letter demanded that I take down the video and issue a public apology or face legal action. I couldn't believe it. Karen was trying to sue me after everything she'd done? I showed the letter to a lawyer friend of mine who assured me it was just a scare tactic. "She doesn't have a case," he said, "but you might want to be careful. Karen sounds like the type to escalate things." He was right. A few nights later, I woke up to the sound of glass breaking. I ran downstairs and found my living room window shattered. There was a brick on the floor, with a note tied to it. The note read, "Stay out of my way." The brick through the window was the last straw. Karen had crossed a line, and I wasn't about to let her get away with it. I called the police, but they said there wasn't much they could do without concrete evidence. Sure, the note was threatening, but it wasn't signed, and there were no witnesses. I knew I had to take things into my own hands. Karen had declared war, and I wasn't going to back down. The first thing I did was upgrade my security system. I installed more cameras, including one that faced Karen's house directly. I also added motion sensors and alarms to every window and door. If Karen tried anything again, I'd have her on camera. Next, I reached out to the neighbors. I knew Karen had been harassing others too. She'd been sending anonymous complaints to the HOA about everyone from the Johnsons' too loud dog to the Garcias' unauthorized garden gnome. I started a group chat and invited everyone who'd been targeted by Karen. At first, people were hesitant to speak up. They didn't want to get involved in the drama. But when I shared the video of Karen sprinkling glitter on my lawn, the floodgates opened. She sent the HOA after me because my trash cans were too shiny. She called the cops on my kids for playing in the street. She left a fake parking ticket on my car because it was too close to her driveway. It turned out Karen had been terrorizing the entire neighborhood for years. Everyone had a story, but no one had dared to stand up to her. Until now. We decided to band together and take action. We collected all the evidence we had. Photos, videos, HOA complaints, even the fake parking tickets, and compiled it into a dossier. Then we presented it to the HOA at their next meeting. The board was shocked. They'd always seen Karen as a dedicated community member, but now they were seeing her true colors. After a long discussion, they voted to ban Karen from all HOA activities and revoke her voting rights. It was a small victory, but it felt good. For the first time in years, the neighborhood was united. But Karen wasn't about to go quietly. A few days after the HOA meeting, I woke up to find my front yard covered in hundreds of tiny plastic flamingos. They were arranged in the shape of a giant middle finger, pointing directly at my house. I couldn't help but laugh. It was so ridiculous, so over the top that it was almost impressive. But I knew this wasn't just a prank, it was a message. Karen was telling me she wasn't done. I decided to turn the tables. I gathered all the flamingos and arranged them in Karen's yard, spelling out the words "Glitter Queen." Then I posted a photo of it on social media, along with the caption, "Karen's latest masterpiece. Who's next?" The post went viral, and the neighborhood loved it. People started adding their own flamingos to Karen's yard, turning it into a community art project. By the end of the week, her lawn was a sea of pink plastic birds. Karen was furious. She tried to remove the flamingos, but every time she did, more would appear. It was like a never-ending game of whack-a-mole. I thought that would finally break her, but I underestimated her determination. One night, I woke up to the sound of my alarm blaring. I ran downstairs and found my living room filled with smoke. At first, I thought the house was on fire, but then I realized it was just a smoke bomb. On the floor was another note. This one read, "You win." For now, I didn't know what to make of it. Was Karen giving up? Or was this just another trick? I didn't have to wait long to find out. The next morning, I woke up to find my car covered in sticky notes again. But this time, they weren't just random Post-its. Each one had a message written on it. You think you're clever, but you're not. This isn't over. Watch your back. I knew Karen was trying to scare me, but it wasn't going to work. I'd come too far to back down now. But as I peeled the notes off my car, I noticed something strange. One of them had a phone number written on it. I didn't recognize the number, but I had a feeling it was important. I decided to call it just to see what would happen. The phone rang once, twice, then someone picked up. "Hello?" a voice said. It wasn't Karen. The voice on the other end of the line was deep and unfamiliar. For a moment, I thought I'd dialed the wrong number, but then the person spoke again. "Who is this?" they asked, their tone sharp and impatient. I hesitated. Hi, my name's your name. I found this number on a note left on my car. Do you know anything about that?" There was a long pause. Then the person sighed. "Yeah, I know about it. Listen, I don't have time to explain everything right now, but you need to be careful. Karen's not who you think she is." My heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" "I mean, she's dangerous. She's got connections, resources, and she's not afraid to use them. If you keep pushing her, she's going to push back harder." I didn't know what to say. This was way bigger than I'd expected. "Who are you?" I finally asked. Another pause. "Let's just say I'm someone who knows Karen better than most. I used to work with her back when she was still in the corporate world. She was ruthless then, and she's even worse now." "Worked with her? What do you mean?" The person hesitated, then said, "Karen used to be a high-powered executive. She got fired for embezzling funds, but she managed to cover it up and walk away without any consequences. She's been living off that money ever since, using it to fund her little projects." I was stunned. Karen, an embezzler? It sounded too crazy to be true, but something about the way this person spoke made me believe them. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because someone needs to stop her," the person said. "And it looks like you're the only one willing to try." Before I could respond, they hung up. I stood there, staring at my phone, trying to process what I'd just heard. Karen wasn't just a petty, entitled neighbor, she was a full-blown criminal. And if this person was telling the truth, she had the resources to make my life a living hell. I knew I had to be careful. If Karen found out I was digging into her past, she'd come after me with everything she had, but I couldn't just let this go. I had to know the truth. I spent the next few days doing some research of my own. I started by looking up Karen's name online, but I didn't find much. It was like she'd erased her past completely. Then I remembered the person on the phone had mentioned Karen's corporate background. I started searching for news articles about embezzlement cases from a few years ago, hoping to find a connection. It took hours, but I finally found something. A news article from 5 years ago about a high-profile embezzlement scandal at a major tech company. The article mentioned a senior executive who'd been accused of stealing millions of dollars, but it didn't name names. I dug deeper, searching for court records and financial documents. Eventually, I found a lawsuit filed by the company against one of its former executives. The name was redacted, but the details matched what the person on the phone had told me. I was onto something. But before I could go any further, I got a warning. One night, I was sitting at my computer, scrolling through old court documents, when I heard a loud bang outside. I ran to the window and saw a car speeding away from my house. On the lawn was another brick, this one wrapped in a note. The note read, "Stop digging or else." I knew it was from Karen. She was watching me, and she wasn't happy, but I wasn't about to stop. If anything, the warning only made me more determined. I decided to reach out to the person who'd called me. I didn't have their number anymore. It had been on the sticky note, which I'd thrown away, but I remembered the area code. I started calling every number in that area code, hoping to find them. It took dozens of calls, but I finally got through. "Hello?" the same voice said. "It's me," I said. "The person you warned about Karen. I need your help." There was a long pause. Then the person sighed. "I was afraid you'd say that. Meet me tomorrow at noon. I'll text you the address." Before I could respond, they hung up. A few minutes later, I got a text with an address. It was for a coffee shop on the other side of town. I didn't know what to expect, but I knew one thing for sure. This was about to get a lot more complicated. The coffee shop was a small, cozy place tucked away in a quiet part of town. I arrived a few minutes early and scanned the room, looking for the person I'd spoken to on the phone. There were only a handful of customers. An elderly couple sipping tea, a college student typing furiously on a laptop, and a man in a dark hoodie sitting in the corner. I walked over to the man in the hoodie. "Is this seat taken?" He looked up, and I got my first good look at him. He was in his late 40s, with graying hair and a tired expression. He nodded toward the chair across from him. "Sit down, and keep your voice low." I sat down and leaned in closer. "Thanks for meeting me." He didn't smile. "I'm only here because you left me no choice. Karen's dangerous, and if you keep poking around, you're going to get yourself, and maybe me, killed." His words sent a chill down my spine. "You really think she'd go that far?" He gave me a look that said, "You have no idea. Karen doesn't play by the rules. She's got money, connections, and a knack for making problems disappear. If she finds out you're digging into her past, she'll come after you with everything she's got." I swallowed hard. "Then why are you helping me?" He sighed. "Because someone needs to stop her, and because I owe it to the people she's hurt." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a flash drive, sliding it across the table to me. Everything you need to know is on here. Bank records, emails, even a few incriminating photos. But be careful. If Karen finds out you have this, she'll do whatever it takes to get it back." I picked up the flash drive, my hands trembling slightly. What am I supposed to do with this? "Take it to the authorities," he said, "but not the local cops. They're too easy to buy off. Go to the FBI. They've been after Karen for years, but they've never had enough evidence to make a case. This could be what they need." I nodded, though my mind was racing. This was way bigger than I'd expected. "Why haven't you gone to the FBI yourself?" He looked away, his expression darkening. "Because Karen knows who I am. If I go to the authorities, she'll come after me. And trust me, you don't want to be on Karen's bad side." Before I could ask any more questions, he stood up. "I've said too much already. Be careful and don't trust anyone. Karen's got eyes everywhere." And with that, he walked out of the coffee shop, leaving me alone with the flash drive and a million questions. I went home and immediately plugged the flash drive into my computer. The files were organized into folders, each one labeled with a different year. I started with the most recent folder and began scrolling through the documents. What I found was shocking. There were bank statements showing large sums of money being transferred to offshore accounts, emails detailing illegal transactions, and even photos of Karen meeting with known criminals. It was like something out of a spy movie. But the most damning evidence was a video file. It showed Karen in a dimly lit room, handing a briefcase full of cash to a man in a suit. The timestamp on the video was from just a few months ago. I knew I had to act fast. I copied all the files onto my computer and then hid the flash drive in a safe place. Then I started researching how to contact the FBI. It wasn't easy. The FBI's website was full of information, but it wasn't exactly user-friendly. After a few hours of searching, I finally found a tip line for reporting financial crimes. I filled out the online form, attached the most incriminating files, and hit submit. Then I waited. The next few days were tense. I kept expecting Karen to show up at my door, demanding to know what I was up to, but she didn't. In fact, she seemed to have disappeared completely. Her house was dark, her car was gone, and there was no sign of her anywhere. I didn't know whether to feel relieved or worried. Then, one night, I got a call from an unknown number. I hesitated before answering, but something told me I needed to take it. "Hello? Is this your name?" a voice asked. It was a woman, and she sounded official. "Yes. Who's this?" "This is Agent Martinez with the FBI. We received your tip about Karen, last name, and we'd like to speak with you further. Can you come down to our office tomorrow morning?" My heart was pounding. "Yes, of course, I'll be there." She gave me the address and hung up. I spent the rest of the night going over the files, making sure I had everything I needed. I didn't know what to expect, but I knew one thing for sure. This was my chance to bring Karen down once and for all. The next morning, I drove to the FBI office and met with Agent Martinez. She was a no-nonsense woman in her 40s, with sharp eyes and a firm handshake. She led me to a small conference room and asked me to explain everything I knew about Karen. I told her the whole story, from the stolen hose to the glitter prank to the flash drive. She listened carefully, taking notes and occasionally asking questions. When I was done, she leaned back in her chair and nodded. "This is good, really good. We've been after Karen for years, but she's always been one step ahead of us. This could be the break we've been waiting for." I felt a surge of hope. "So what happens now?" "Now we build a case," she said. "We'll need to verify the evidence you've provided, and we may need you to testify if it goes to trial. But for now, you've done your part. Let us handle the rest." I left the FBI office feeling a mix of relief and anxiety. I'd done everything I could, but I knew the fight wasn't over. Karen was still out there, and if she found out what I'd done, She'd come after me with everything she had, but for the first time in weeks, I felt like I had the upper hand. The days after my meeting with Agent Martinez were a strange mix of tension and quiet. Karen's house remained dark, her car still gone, and the neighborhood felt eerily calm without her constant meddling. But I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the calm before the storm. I kept a low profile, avoiding any unnecessary interactions with the neighbors and staying close to home. I didn't want to give Karen, or anyone working for her, a chance to catch me off guard. My security cameras were on 24/7s, and I checked the footage religiously, looking for any sign of trouble. Then, one evening, I got a call from Agent Martinez. "We've made progress," she said, her tone brisk and professional. "The evidence you provided has allowed us to open a formal investigation into Karen's activities. We've already frozen several of her offshore accounts and issued a warrant for her arrest." I felt a surge of relief. That's great news. Does that mean she's in custody? There was a pause. Not yet. Karen's gone underground. We've been tracking her movements, but she's proving to be elusive. My stomach dropped. "So, she's still out there?" "For now," Agent Martinez said. "But we're closing in. In the meantime, I need you to stay vigilant. Karen knows you're the one who tipped us off, and she's not going to take that lightly." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "I understand. I'll be careful." After the call, I double-checked all my security measures. I reinforced the locks on my doors, set up additional motion sensors, and even installed a panic button that would alert the police if I pressed it. I wasn't taking any chances. But despite all my precautions, I couldn't shake the feeling that Karen was watching me. Every creak of the house, every rustle of the trees outside made me jump. I started sleeping with a baseball bat next to my bed, just in case. Then, one night, I got a text from an unknown number. "You think you've won, but the game isn't over yet." My heart raced as I stared at the screen. I didn't recognize the number, but I knew it had to be Karen. She was taunting me, trying to get under my skin. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the text to Agent Martinez and waited for her reply. "We're tracking the number," she texted back. "Stay calm and don't engage." Easier said than done. The next morning, I woke up to find my front yard covered in hundreds of tiny plastic flamingos, again. But this time, they were arranged in the shape of a question mark. I didn't know what it meant, but I knew it wasn't good. I called Agent Martinez and told her about the flamingos. She promised to send a team to investigate, but I knew it wouldn't do much good. Karen was playing mind games, and she was winning. Later that day, I got another text from the same number. "You should have stayed out of my way." This time, I couldn't resist responding. "What do you want, Karen?" The reply came almost instantly. "I want you to suffer. Like you've made me suffer." I didn't know what to say. Karen was clearly unhinged, and I didn't want to provoke her further, but I also couldn't just sit back and let her terrorize me. I decided to take a risk. I texted back, "You're finished, Karen. The FBI has everything they need to put you away for good." There was a long pause before her reply came through. "We'll see about that." The next few days were a blur of tension and paranoia. I barely slept, jumping at every sound and checking my security cameras obsessively. I knew Karen was out there, waiting for the right moment to strike. Then, one night, I got a call from Agent Martinez. "We've found her," she said, her voice tense. "Karen's holed up in a cabin about 50 miles from here. We're moving in tonight." I felt a surge of hope. "That's great. What do you need me to do?" "Stay put," she said firmly. "Karen's dangerous, and we don't want you anywhere near this. We'll let you know as soon as it's over." I agreed, but as soon as I hung up, I started pacing. I couldn't just sit here and wait. I needed to do something. Against my better judgment, I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I couldn't just sit around while Karen was out there plotting her next move. As I stepped outside, I noticed something strange. My car was gone. I stared at the empty driveway, my heart pounding. I knew I'd parked there earlier. I always did. But now it was just gone. Before I could process what was happening, I heard a noise behind me. I turned around just in time to see a figure step out of the shadows. It was Karen. She looked different. Her hair was disheveled, her clothes were dirty, and there was a wild look in her eyes, but it was definitely her. "Looking for something?" she asked, holding up my car keys. I took a step back, my mind racing. "Karen, this is over. The FBI is on their way. You need to turn yourself in." She laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "You really think this is about the FBI? This is about you. You ruined everything. My life, my reputation, my plans, and now you're going to pay." I didn't know what to do. Karen was clearly unstable, and I was alone, with no way to call for help. But then, I remembered the panic button I'd installed. It was in my pocket, and all I had to do was press it. I reached into my pocket, trying to be subtle, but Karen noticed. "What are you doing?" she snapped, stepping closer. I didn't answer. Instead, I pressed the button and braced myself for whatever came next. The moment I pressed the panic button, a loud alarm blared from inside my house, echoing through the quiet neighborhood. Karen flinched, her eyes darting toward the sound. I used that split second of distraction to my advantage, bolting toward the street. "You're not going anywhere," Karen shouted, lunging after me. I ran as fast as I could, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I had to get away from her. But Karen was faster than I expected. She grabbed the back of my shirt, yanking me to a stop. "Let me go!" I shouted, struggling to break free. Karen's grip tightened, her nails digging into my arm. "You think you're so clever, don't you? Well, let's see how clever you are when you're—" Before she could finish, a pair of headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating us both. A car screeched to a halt in front of my house, and two figures jumped out. It was Agent Martinez and another FBI agent. "Karen, last name, you're under arrest," Agent Martinez shouted, her gun drawn. Karen froze, her grip on me loosening. I took the opportunity to wrench myself free and stumbled toward the agents. "You're too late," Karen snarled, her voice dripping with venom. "You'll never prove anything." "We already have," Agent Martinez said, stepping closer. "We've got bank records, emails, and a video of you handing over cash to a known criminal. It's over, Karen." For a moment, Karen just stood there, her face twisted with rage. Then, without warning, she turned and bolted toward the woods behind my house. "Stop!" Agent Martinez shouted, chasing after her. The other agent stayed with me, making sure I was okay. "Are you hurt?" he asked. I shook my head, still catching my breath. "I'm fine, but you need to stop her. She's dangerous." He nodded and radioed for backup. Within minutes, the area was swarming with FBI agents and local police. They set up a perimeter around the woods and began searching for Karen. I stayed inside, watching from the window as the search unfolded. It felt like hours passed, though it was probably only minutes. Then, finally, I heard shouting. "We've got her!" I rushed outside just in time to see Karen being led out of the woods in handcuffs. Her hair was tangled, her clothes were torn, and she looked furious. But for the first time, she also looked defeated. As they walked her past me, she stopped and locked eyes with me. "This isn't over," she hissed. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, watching as they put her in the back of a police car and drove away. It was over. Epilogue. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. Karen was formally charged with embezzlement, money laundering, and a host of other crimes. The evidence against her was overwhelming, and she was denied bail. The neighborhood breathed a collective sigh of relief. Without Karen around, things finally started to calm down. The HOA disbanded, and the neighbors began to rebuild the sense of community that Karen had destroyed. As for me, I tried to move on. I fixed the damage Karen had done to my house and yard, and I even planted a new garden where the flamingos had been. But I couldn't shake the feeling that Karen's shadow still lingered. Then, one day, I got a letter in the mail. It was from Karen. I hesitated before opening it, unsure of what to expect. Inside was a single sheet of paper, covered in her messy handwriting. "You think you've won," it read, "but you've only delayed the inevitable. I'll be back, and when I am, you'll regret ever crossing me." I crumpled the letter and threw it away. Karen might have been gone, but her threat still haunted me. Still, I refused to let her control my life. I'd stood up to her once, and I'd do it again if I had to. Because in the end, Karen wasn't invincible. She was just a person, a deeply flawed, dangerous person, but a person nonetheless. And no matter how much she tried to intimidate me, I wasn't going to let her win. The neighborhood was finally at peace, and so was I. For now, at least.